So good morning, everybody. I'm here in Montreal. It is cold and it does not look like spring, but everybody's pretending that spring is around the corner. So I thought, what better way to start the better weather than to have a conversation with a guy who lives in constant sunshine, Mr. Marc Petitpas. Marc, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tamara. How are you?
I'm good. So I thought, this is kind of for me personally, guys, but I thought it'd be interesting to a lot of you who maybe enjoy writing a lot or have ever dreamed of writing a book. As you know, Marc has written a book. Here it is. It's called The 50-Year-Old Millennial. And as you can see, it's not super thick. And you might think to yourself, why? We're going to answer that question today. But I thought it would be also interesting just to get to understand a little bit about the impetus for this book. And so I had a couple questions for Marc this morning. And if we like this, we're going to do it again. Keep on digging into this opportunity. Looking at maybe a little bit differently today. I'm looking at it more to understand, how Marc did this. I think that's really interesting. I think for a lot of people who might think to themselves, I'd love to write about something I have a passion about. Oh, how long is it going to take? What's the work involved? But for today, I'm just going to focus on a couple things. So my first question for Marc is, what was the impetus for this? So how did you come up with it? When did you come up with it? Was it an epiphany, or was it more something that you had mulled over the years and you decided, hey, you know what? I really want to make this happen.
That's a great question, and I'm glad someone asked it because it's really important to me to share that answer. To tell you the truth, I have been in back at since my McDonald days as a 16-year-old kid that I do write about in the book. Quickly into positions of team leadership, the shift supervisor and all those types of things, and then through my career as it's progressed to senior levels in bigger and bigger organizations, I've been blessed to work with some great leaders. And as I became a little more educated through my career about how they were doing it and really trying to observe better and learn lessons and find those skills so I could, one, pick them up myself and two, pass them on, when I showed up with bad leadership, it was this great contrast, right? And there was like, wait, there's a story to tell here. Without throwing the bad leadership piece under the bus, there's no value in saying, here's what's wrong with the world. Trust me, I feel it every day.
Right.
um, but there's no value. People don't aspire to learn from, we say all the time you can learn from others' mistakes and learn from our own mistakes, but what we remember are all the positive things that influence us. And so what I wanted to do was take that gap, like here's what the really good leaders do really well, and here's what the bad leaders do, and let's close that gap. So let's build this tool so we have better leaders. And internally, whenever I'd get promoted in an organization, to a VP of a department, I'd come in and I'd build my own training, and it was behavior based. And what I did with all the managers, I taught them how to lead and what are one-on-ones and what are connection meetings, all this stuff that's in the book. um, to the point where I got to president of company, I was able to have that influence and ensure everybody was doing it, starting with the senior management team. And it's still, I have connections, I talk to people, and I realize people aren't experiencing this level of leadership, and I don't blame that on the business owner or the leader, and just side with the employees being led that way. It's just awareness. There's not enough people who know about it. And so the reason I wrote the book was like, wow, I've got my own business now. There's no governor on my mouth now, right? I can say whatever I want. It's going to get me into trouble at times, but it's usually going to be pretty positive. But like, how do I tell that story? Because now I think over 25 years, I've got a process that I've learned from others, and I acknowledge them in the book, that I've now made my own. And how do we get, like, tomorrow, I really believe this. I believe we can change mental health in this country because we spend half our time at work as adults. And if we have good leadership and we're thriving at work, we feel better going home. And so our negativity doesn't impact others. And so I'm like, well, how do I do this now? Well, I got to write this book. Now, you've seen my posts. Most people have seen my posts. Grammar and spelling aren't my strongest strengths, right? I get by. I've been able to write decks and create content, but that professionalism in writing was a gap for me. And so I said, well, that shouldn't stop me from telling my story. And so I went out And I got Mike Ulmer to co-write the book with me. And Mike's a professional author and has published multiple books. And we worked together at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. He was a journalist, and him and I blended. And so I thought, now's my chance. I got a guy who can write it. I've done that. All I have to do is talk and share my process and be crystal clear on that. And I did do some of the writing and laying out the format and the architecture, but Mike is the storyteller who brings it all to life. But I finally got to a point where I was like, okay, I've got everything. I've got my experiences. I know it impacts people positively. I got a process that can help others. And I got a guy who can help me write that story. And that's why I wrote the book. And I go back to, I really think we can change mental health in this country by improving leadership skills. And lastly, I wrote it because I'm seeing these talented people leave organizations craving leadership. And yet I see business owners thinking, well, all I have to do is put a slide in the office and buy them drinks and they're going to be happy. And they're not doing the work in closing the gap. And I want to help those business owners retain and attract talent. So I was like, okay, good, I got it. And so finally, to answer your question in a long way, um, I wrote it because I got a story to tell that I think can impact others. And I got a process that's easy to learn. And I think we can change the way we lead in organizations. I know that sounds really bold and
No,
soapbox-ish,
no,
but it is the answer.
no, no. I mean, I think that indeed, like, it's important for people to understand, kind of when people write something, especially something that's going to guide others, right? So, writing a fictional book, a good drama, there's another reason behind it. But I think when you're writing for, like a guide, right, which is interesting, and you and I talked about this when we first started talking, is that this is a handbook, right? This is not a 400-page book that your average Joe or Jane might look through and say, oh, I got to set aside time for this. Whatever. It's a guide. And what's great about it is you can actually just pick it up and flip through it and come across, for me personally, there are a couple things that I wanted to be able to reference as I was doing some posts that were spoke to me specifically. And I thought, well, I'm able to reference this because I know where they are in the book, and I'm going to do that. But I do think it's important that people understand that there's something specific behind what drives a person to spend the time. I mean, I think that you would tell us that it's a labor of love, right? It's not an easy task. You didn't sit down, flip it out in one day. You identified a potential opportunity for yourself, and that you didn't want to just write it by yourself, because you said to yourself, I want it to be professional. So I'm going to
Yeah.
ask Mike to come in and give me a hand. But it speaks of you all the way through. There's no parts of the book that I read that I thought to myself, that's not Marc. It speaks to Marc all the way through.
Yeah.
So thanks for that answer.
Yeah. And by the way, that was a non-negotiable. And I know this is going to sound selfish, and it isn't, because there's a picture of me on the cover. And it's
Right.
the 50-year-old millennial, and it's my book. But the minute you start opening the pages, you'll see it's the story of other great leaders and how we transfer those behaviors. Now, having said that, the reason I prefaced this comment with that is, yeah, it is my book. It is my thoughts. It is my process. I wouldn't have been able to write it on my own, even though I've got all this training content built around this. But a book's got to entertain the reader too. And so I had to find that partner who could help tell that story in an entertaining way. It's why there's stories about my life and experiences with the process, and that's where Mike came in. But to your point, yeah, it's all mine. Like it's my literally tears. Like Mike and I would do interviews, and I would literally be in tears by the end of it. And it's my laughter, and it's my sweat, and it's my joy, and yeah, it's definitely my view on things.
Yeah. Now I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. So it's good thing that we have editing available. One thing that you
We will
mentioned.
not edit this, for the record.
All right. Okay. I know you like our viewers to know that, so that's good. One thing that you touch on that I think is a very important subject right now, and I feel like perhaps you haven't done yourself enough justice by speaking more about this, is this whole issue about mental health and kind of what's going on. And I think that it's really important. I'll do my own little speech. I think that it's really important that people really embrace, that by the numbers. just factually, there's no opinion about it. We as working individuals spend an inordinate amount of time in the workplace with the people we work with. And there's no way for any of us not to have whatever happens at work influence us on a personal level, right? So when it's positive, it's great. When it's negative, it can be life changing, right? And I think, especially right now, as we are starting to see small cracks in the armor in terms of this COVID, and that we're finally seeing that maybe within the next year, things will somewhat go back to what we thought of as normal. There's a real opportunity now to talk about why leadership is so heavily tied into mental health and mental wellness in the workplace. Um, there are so many examples that you could give of this, but when you think about it, we think of leadership in a business sense, but obviously leadership is kind of, it's all over the place, right? It starts when you're in school. A good teacher is a good leader, right? And it continues throughout your lifetime as you start working in any business that you're in. The person who you see as your leader can either be a leader, which is wonderful, or they can be a manager, which is a whole different ballgame. And I think one of the things that you and I talked about and connected about at the very beginning was how to take managers and help them get to a place of leadership, right? So talk to me a little bit about how the mental health piece plays into this for you, and sort of how you perceive that, and how the book sort of, not just the book, but also the leadership training ties into mental health and mental wellness and what that means to you.
Yeah, it's funny because there have been tremendous business people, scientists, educators, novelists, writers, whatever you want to call them, that have been preaching about the benefits of positive leadership for decades. You know, like John Maxwell's 5 level of leadership. Like, there's your leadership to management gap. Like, level 1 is you're a leader because you have a title, but no one
Right.
really wants to follow you, right? And then you go into level 2, and what you want to aspire to be is at least a level 3, where people are seeking out that leadership style because they know it's going to help them succeed, and they know you can grow organizations. As you
Right.
transition to level 4, where like you can literally lead more leaders and replicate that and make it cascade through an organization. And where I'm going with that is, that's a choice. It's also a skill. And
Okay.
so what I believe is, we can impact mental health by getting people to make the choice, but our higher success is going to be even, focusing more on the people who have made the choice, but now just closing the skill gap. And so the reason I wrote that book, to have a positive impact on mental health, is there's a bunch of leaders out there who got promoted because they're good at their job. And just like anything else, leadership is a skill that can be taught, and no one's teaching that. We in organizations say, well, you're the best sales professional, so now you're the manager. But now you're not selling anymore. And your skill set is, yeah, you need that base of knowledge, but your skill set is really, how do I coach, develop, and train people so they can sell and be
Right.
successful? And if you don't have those skills, as a human being, you get stuck and you do whatever you got to do to change the result. And that's where we see a negative decline in mental health, because now 10 people are impacted by this sales manager who just doesn't know how to change the results. So they're either defaulting to what they think will work, which is threatening people and screaming and not addressing the behavioral issue, or they've seen it in some other leader in the past and it worked. And when you do that now, you're not talking about a one-on-one relationship, you're talking at a 1-to-8 relationship, as an example. Now,
Yep.
here's the upside. Imagine if we teach leaders how to engage with their team. And when people hear servant leadership, they think, well, it's soft and no one's ever held accountable to the results. And no, quite the reverse. We've got
Right.
targets, we've got goals, we're going to hold you accountable to those results. But if you have a knowledge gap, I'm going to lead you, I'm going to get you there. We're going to close that gap. We're going to teach you, we're going to train you, we're going to give you the tools to succeed. If you've got a willingness gap, you don't want to do it, oh boy, that's a different story. And I can't lead you through that journey. But if I stay focused on the knowledge gap, I'm going to create a positive environment for 8 people to succeed. Now those 8 people are leaving work with a positive mental health mind frame going home versus 8 people leaving not knowing where they stand in their job. My boss just yells at me, but they don't tell me how to do it. I know I'm not hitting my numbers. Look at my paycheck. I want to hit my numbers. I don't know how, or I don't. And so for me, and I truly believe this, if you think about an organization, the CEO's approach with that highest level of stress at times, that C-suite and that accountability that comes with the role, if they're leading with a servant leadership nature and the tools in the book as an example, and they enforce that with their team to serve that way with the next layer down, now you touch an entire organization. And companies want to say, and this is going to sound critical, and maybe it is, to be honest. Maybe there is value in being a little bit critical. We are not defining employee engagement the right way. Owners want to give someone a better paycheck to make the problem go away, or they want to give them another perk to make the problem go away. And what people want is they want that consistency. They want to be treated well, and they want to know that they matter and they can grow if they put in the effort. And so for me, this book is all about improving mental health, because we do that. People leave the workplace, in great spirits versus negative spirits. And at the end of the day, Tamara, it's great for business. Like I can't, I still struggle to this day why leaders don't pick this leadership approach, because it's very simplistic in nature. If you got a process that develops your people, they're going to get better at what they do.
Yeah.
If they're better at what they do, they're going to be more productive, and you're going to gain and retain more clients.
Yeah.
Why not have both? Why not have a positive impact on your employees' mental health and grow your company?
Yeah. Totally. Love it.
I told you
Well,
I'd get on my soapbox with a couple of these questions.
no, that's great. I mean, that's kind of, exactly what I was hoping for. And it resonates so solidly to me. I have had great leaders and I've had mediocre managers. I think it's just the way of the world. And I think, again, that, one of the things I noticed the most, it was something you mentioned in the book and we've talked about, is people who get promoted for the wrong reasons, right? People who get promoted because they're good at what they do. And so the natural assumption is that they then will be able to transfer those skills to a group of individuals. And we all both know that being a great salesperson is an independent role, right? You're relying on yourself. Being a great leader or great manager does not necessarily mean teaching those particular skills, but it's more about how to motivate and how to identify the gaps in the skills so that you can support getting those people the help. So, good answer.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, just to add, because I don't want to forget the part, like. And I'm just as I don't want leaders pointing fingers at employees, I want them developing skills. I also think it's time to reset pointing fingers at these boomer managers and like Gen X leaders because they don't understand the millennials. No, we gotta improve on both sides of the equation.
Sure,
And pointing fingers doesn't help. So like just like I want good leaders to take care of their people, we got to support the leaders in the marketplace that don't have the training and give them that opportunity to enhance their skills. That's what the book's about.
Yeah, absolutely. So one last question.
Sure.
So in terms of the book, here it is again.
Thanks for the plugs. I love it.
I'm working on a Vanna White kind of presentation. I don't know if anybody is feeling this vibe, but here we go.
I'll take another vowel. No, I'm just teasing. Go ahead.
Okay. You got a couple here: E's, T's, and A's.
There's lots of vowels.
If you were to write another book, what would it look like, and what would be? Just give us a quick, hey, I've written this book. I loved it. I enjoyed the process. I now am thinking I should be writing another book about.
I'm gonna write another book about the Montreal Canadiens. No, I'm just teasing. I'd love to write. I'd love to write. I'd love to write a book about that, but no, I wouldn't add much value there. Everybody knows they've won 24 Stanley Cups and they're the best team ever. Right. But anyways,
and that they're the winning. Are they still the winningest franchise in sports?
Not in sports. No, I think Yankees have Yankees might have 26 or 27 Worlds. So yeah, it's no longer Montreal.
There was a time where you could have a conversation with somebody who wasn't as familiar with the Canadiens, and they would say, "Well, they haven't won a cup in a while," and I'd be like, Yeah, but they're the winningest franchise in sports. But you're right. I think the Yankees have surpassed that
Yeah,
now.
they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be like
Okay.
Yankees, Habs, but now Yankees have
Yeah.
kind of gone to the next level. But in all
But we
seriousness,
digress.
what's
Yeah.
that?
I said we digress.
Did we digress? Yes.
Yeah.
Got to tell you, I already want to write that next book.
Okay.
Um, Again, it's a scenario where I have to calm my emotions a little bit because when I wrote the 50-year-old millennial, I was pissed off.
Okay.
Like, I'm talking about making it positive. I had to step back because I was angry with some things I had gone through in observing leadership and the impact it had had on people, including myself. So I had to stop being angry and I needed to breathe and get my head right. And okay, how do I turn that into a learning opportunity? I already know what that next book is, and it's about sales. Um,
Okay.
but I'm also still angry about it. It is incredible to me that organizations invest in training for project managers. Hey, go take this project management course, and we're going to get you a subscription to Microsoft Project Manager, or we're going to train you on how to use Gantt charts. And engineers, we're going to send you off to your latest certification. And finance, we're going to go get you your next designation. And we don't invest in sales training at all. We literally say, okay, well, you're in sales. Yet sales is driving all the revenue. And I don't believe they're any more important than any other piece in the organization, but they certainly should be equal from a skills development perspective.
Sure.
And what
Absolutely.
we do is we say, okay, well, here's a software. You have CRM, so go sell. Well, CRM isn't sales behaviors. And anything that we may be training in sales honestly feels like, Glengarry Ross, ABC, always be closing. Like, and it's
Yeah.
that art. And that's great if that mattered to the customer, but it doesn't. The customer is sick of salespeople coming in with that attitude because they already know what's coming. The customer is
Right.
going to buy from people that have a professional skill in helping find out what their problems are and solving them differently than anyone else can in the marketplace. But we're not training sales professionals that way, and we're not investing in them.
Yeah.
So my next book's going to be all about like, hey guys, I got you. I grew up in it because I've been selling my entire life, and I haven't always been in sales roles, right? I'm selling my leadership thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tie them to a need in the marketplace so I can solve it. But functionally, that's been my career, whether it's selling fries in your combo or selling a sneaker spray with your running shoes, to getting my store managers to get their staff to sell accessories with your cell phone back at TELUS. Um, Cell phone, not smartphone, cell phone. I'm really aging myself now. Or at MLSE, working with all the teams to add on in the stadium experience. And it's all, and then in construction, like getting people to finish their basements because it was the right thing to do. All of those sales behaviors set people up for success. But most importantly, what I've been telling people all along, they're like, well, how come your team always get great customer engagement scores? Sorry, customer survey scores. Well, because I'm focused on the experience, the sales are just a byproduct.
Yeah.
And guess what? We always happen to hit our budgets. Now, you don't make your budgets every year, but I've usually had teams that have hit their sales budget and succeed, improve margins, and improve those upgrade sales because they're coming from the perspective of what does the customer need? How do I find out? How do I position now what they need and get them to buy in that, yep, they agree, I have that. And then how do I provide the value of where we're different and what our differentiators are? Because those are all behavioral skills you've got to train people on. It's
Right.
just like prospecting. Like, ask 99% of the CEOs what prospecting is, and they'll tell you, well, it's in CRM and there's a phone list and you got to call all these people till they buy. Okay. So go tell an engineer to put up a scoreboard in a professional sports entertainment arena and just make it safe. Because that's what we're doing. No, they get designation. They got to get a sign off. It's going to be registered. Everything has to but no, when our number one thing is revenue generation, we're not going to develop their skills. So you can sense a little bit of the anger in me. It's still there. I'm kind of pissed off about the reputation that sales gets,
Mm-hmm.
and the lack of development that they get. So yeah, I am writing another book, and it's going to be about sales, and it's not going to be "F you, train your salespeople." Although if you asked me to write the title today, it would be. Um, I'll calm
You know
down
what?
and
You might
it'll
want
look
to think
different.
about that though, because it would probably get a lot of attention. Like, don't be afraid of that, the F word. It's important.
Yeah, I just think like anything in life, some of the biggest expectations we have in people, we take
Mm,
no accountability to setting people up to deliver on those expectations. And for
yeah.
me, those two big ones are leadership and their sales and organizations right now.
Totally agree. I agree. I mean, I think that, it comes from, we're rounding the corner, I think, from a historical standpoint in business where we're trying to right, I don't want to say the wrongs of the past, but we're trying to bring ourselves into the next millennial, right? Like we're trying to say to ourselves, we need to have workforces that are reflective of our populations, right? We need to embrace diversity, and that diversity is from what you look at to what you sound like to how you approach different things, right? Instead of doing things in a straightforward fashion, you're going to embrace different ways of getting to success and results. And I also think as you said, I'm a lifetime salesperson, been selling my whole life. And I do think that there's always been a bit of a misnomer that anybody can sell. And it's not true, right? Not anybody can sell. It is a skill set, but those people that are really, really good at it are not those people who are simply picking up phones, following a list, and making a phone call. There's more to it. And so those people that are good salespeople, um, sometimes they can teach it, but sometimes they can't. And so recognizing what it is that makes a great salesperson and the behaviors that go behind the activities, because you're right, teaching an activity is one thing, teaching a behavior is more of a honed skill, right? So we, the audience out here, are looking forward to Marc's second book. um, and we'll continue this conversation further as we delve a little more into Marc Petitpas, the 50-year-old millennial. But for today, we're going to sign off with our thanks to Marc for his time and obviously his energy. If we could just harness it, we would have enough to brighten the whole province of Ontario.
Oh, that's so kind of you.
Well. All right, signing off. Thank you, Marc, for your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.